Welcome to the Shakaama Live Show with your host, Shakaama. Here are 7 ways women are self-rejecting themselves out of the job market. Well, as you may well know, women have been since the 80s selecting themselves to leave the job market. As much as the push was to get women to enter the job market, and it's no surprise that this push comes at the hands of the left, the Democrats, right? Because Democrats want control. Democrats want taxes, such that if you have women working along with men, you get double the taxes, or so the theory goes. But it seems that when you have a little bit of economics under your belt, and specifically if you have a little bit of governmental economics under your belt, you see and realize that that is not the case. Now, nobody's accusing anybody else in Congress of actually having any sort of real knowledge about economics, right? As much as they want to pretend that they do. Number 1, we have these lawsuits going on. Well, this entire list is all the risk factors of hiring a woman, and why it is not, why they are any hiring managers, I mean real hiring managers. I'm not talking about the female HR stuff, which then tries to promote women only, right? Because they think that's a good thing. They think it's a good thing. Literally in Puerto Rico, the president or the governor fired half of the governmental workers. Said, we can't afford you. The previous governments who hired a bunch of people and put you all on with your union into jobs really did a disservice to the country. You're fired. We can't pay you. We don't have the money. We don't have the money. And since I'm a governor and not the president of the United States, I can't just keep you employed. So these are the risk factors. These lawsuits against men means that women are inherently a risk to a company and to everybody in the company, because these lawsuits don't just target men. Surprise! So the risk factor there is probably akin to a 100% risk factor. That 100% you will suffer some sort of lawsuit, and that lawsuit could devastate the entire company. I'll get into that more later. Discrimination lawsuits. And these are based on gender, not anything else that we're talking about here. We're talking about specific to women. So if you say, calling all cars, we're looking on the lookout to hire engineers, and you don't hire women, there you go. Boom. Lawsuit. But ma'am, you have 0 qualifications for the job. You didn't hire any women. But ma'am, you don't have any qualifications for the job. And it seems that a smart judge, I guess that you would have to have appointed for life, like maybe a Supreme Court justice, would be the only person who could stand up and say, you have no standing. What does you have no standing means? That means that you're not really a party to this. You're not really hurt by this because you don't have anything inherent in you that triggers your right to sue somebody, right? So if you don't have engineering degree, engineering experience, then why are you suing over engineering? Not receiving an engineering post. case dismissed, you have no standing, right? But inherently, they sue over that, right? Then we have the forced hiring, that people are trying to pass laws to force you to hire women, which is unconstitutional. I mean, all sorts. If you aren't a governmental agency, you literally have no impetus, nothing under the law that says that you must obey the state telling you that you have to hire somebody. And the only reason that you don't see lawsuits about disabled people or the stuff about pregnant women and getting their job back is because of the public relations nightmare, because women don't think it through. They don't think everything through. You can't say, but why do I need to hire a disabled person when that inherently destroys that complete position? So if I hire a disabled person, and the whole point of hiring someone is to make money off of that person, and I want to hire the most qualified for the position. And please don't give me this, disabled people are qualified too. A 300-pound, 8% body fat man lifting iron plates all day is going to be far more efficient than some guy in a wheelchair. Logic? Everybody agree? But the law says you gotta hire disabled people. Now it's trying to say you gotta hire women. When there's study after study after study after study after study after study after study in Europe that says women are not efficient or as efficient as men. And that efficiency has even come into question about men. So you got robots. You're pushing the entire envelope that nobody works. Requiring private companies to force them to hire people is unconstitutional. They don't sue the state because they don't want to be seen as the big bad wolf for saying we don't need to hire women. We don't need to hire wheelchair-bound people. And people say, well, he can do the job. Well, he can do the job. Or I could hire a man that types 160 words a minute, that can reach the top shelf in the filing cabinet without any assistance whatsoever, and do it within 5 minutes. Refile everything in 5 minutes. No requirement of anything else. And they don't want to put that new wheelchair. It's not really a wheelchair. It's a wheelchair that attaches to your legs and makes you stand up like a regular human being without any disabilities. So we don't want, I guess, Iron Man working in the company. Not working, but we don't want to hand that out to people so that they are not disabled, right? Okay. Quotas. Requiring quotas. You got to have this amount of women in your company. You got to have this amount of women on your board. What does being a woman have to do with stacking iron plates? How's that a qualification? That's not a qualification. We got to vote her into office as the first president because she's a female. How is that a qualification? How is that even in the discussions of what would make a good president? It's not. hate to tell you folks that, but it's not. Having quotas is evil. Now you're going to say, well, there's affirmative action, which does not help black people, which it was intent. White women declared themselves a minority, although they're 51% of the population. And as you start going through and eliminating certain people out of the population due to various factors, they're probably more like 60% of the population. And probably 70% of the labor force, potential labor force. Remember I said 80s? Since the 80s, they've been taking themselves out of the labor force? Yes. Women have been quitting their jobs and stopped working since the 80s. In the 80s was the highest percentage of women in the labor force. The 80s. Not the 90s, not the 2000s, not recently, not the 2000s, not the 2010s. They don't want to report that to you. Women have finally figured out, hey, it costs more for me to pay for childcare. More than what I'm making my salary. And we're talking all the way up to CEOs of companies. Female CEOs. Okay, California, you want to have quotas about CEOs and boards of companies? I'm sorry. You did not. What did I say again? They didn't look at actual. You can't accuse them of looking at actual economics. You can't accuse them of looking at actual data. That women are excusing themselves from working, even up to the CEO level. Why? Because it is more cost effective for their family to not have a second or even a third car, because you still have to have a family car to drive junior and daughter and your 2.3 kids, right? Drive them around. So you got to have your minivan, you got to have your Shakaama van, and you got to have another car for a female CEO to drive to work, and it's got to be a nice car. So it's got to be what is that? A Chrysler 3000. I don't know anything about cars. I know that they have a wheel that you steer with and that they have four wheels on them. That's all I know about cars. So you got to have a luxury car for a female CEO to drive to work, right? And she's got to maintain that car. She's got to keep the car up. She's got to have a wardrobe of her own, and that wardrobe has to not have, double, wear something 2 and 3 times a week. So her wardrobe has to be kept up, and since she's a CEO, she's expected to have a designer wardrobe. Now you're getting into why CEOs of companies make millions of dollars or are given millions of dollars, because there's expectations on them that are over and above the job. Now she has to then dry clean all of her, so she has to keep up her clothes. The cost of keeping the clothes up is more than a lot of people make in a week or a month. The cost of keeping up her clothes, right? Then you have all of the extras of insurance and this and that and the other extra expenses. So these female CEOs have sat down, gone over the numbers and said, honey, I think I need to quit my job. And honey says, okay, since you're writing down all the numbers, you figure out how we're going to live in this house, in this neighborhood, and I'm going to make enough for both of us. And she says, yes, we're going to erase all of these expenses. You make more than enough for the house and the upkeep and the insurance, and we're going to get rid of my luxury car. And it pans out. And it actually pans out that the expenses outweighs her salary as a CEO. So women have been doing that, sat down and did the numbers and found that they're working. The two income house does not actually work. because the expense of the woman is too much. That's commuting and all that other stuff. All of that is factored into it. Then we get to the Bill Cosby case. Let me put this into the most simplest way that everybody listening to me can understand. This was a fiasco. A man got convicted. Ignore the name Bill Cosby. A man got convicted and sentenced to prison with no evidence. In fact, there was evidence against the accusation that you do not hear in the news, but there was evidence against the accusation. Let's ignore the kangaroo court. Let's ignore just the basis alone that this man was convicted and sentenced to actual time in jail with zero evidence. And all of the evidence actually pointed to his innocence and the complicity of the actual accuser, such that any reasonable person could draw a conclusion that she was getting revenge for something, or, if you want to go a conspiratorial route, that she was being used by parties outside of the case to do this whole thing. And you simply had to take one step outside of the courthouse on the steps to realize who some of those outside parties were. Something rhymes with Gloria. FMLA abuse. So here's what it does. Here's how you do it. You take your maternity leave. Okay, company offers maternity leave. Right. Maternity leave can last up to like 3 weeks, 3 months, or even 6 months. Right. Because sometimes women don't bounce back. Right. Then the woman takes paid FMLA leave, right? So for 3 months. So now she's getting paid for almost a year, and it could last up a year with the maternity leave, and then the woman quits. So she gets paid for a whole year without working at all, and gets fully paid the whole salary. Abuse, full-on abuse, and companies are getting wise to this, and then the maternity leave abuse was the last one, so I combined the two. Risk managers are now a solid no to hiring women, and a single woman can destroy an entire company. A single woman. And when I was writing the script here, I had an example in mind, and of course I can't think of that example. Write me some examples of you all. Thank you all for watching. Those were the 7 deadly sins. No, the 7 reasons women are self-rejecting themselves out of the labor force. And this whole push for women to work, they are leaving out the entire fact that women now are probably like 30% less working than in the 80s. That the labor participation rate for women has been just going down since the 80s. So this whole push to say women need to do this and women need to do that, first you got to have women actually wanting to work. And they are leaving in droves. Leaving. And this is why less and less women are identifying themselves as actual feminists. So the feminists are fighting tooth and nail within the whole woman sphere to get women on board of the whole feminist train. Now, that doesn't mean that women still can't enjoy everything that the feminists push for, which destroys the country, destroys the economy, destroys. I mean destroys. I'm not being hyperbolic or anything like that. I'm not exaggerating. I'm not being over the top. We're talking about cities going bankrupt due to the policies enacted at the threat from feminists. Are you all right? You gonna be all right? Come here. Come here. Come here. Come here. Come here. Come here. Come here, buddy. Come here. Stand up. Stand up. Stand up. All right. Stand up. Come on. Come on. What are you doing? Okay. All right. What are you doing? All right. Here we go. All right. What's up, poopies? What's up, poopies? What's up? I need to start making him run and jump and skip and hop. He's getting chubby. Anyway, thank you all for watching. Leave a comment. That was a workout. How much do you weigh now? You weigh 100 pounds? How much do you weigh? Fat boy. All right. Thank you all for watching.